Fantrax Fantasy Football Mailbag heading into Week 2. How do you factor ADP into trade decisions in the first 4 weeks of the season? So each week we should be taking in the information and pivoting. In my opinion, after Week 1, I don't care about ADP. I care about my fantasy football team getting better, and I care about making sure that I am adjusting to what happens in the games. Obviously, we don't want to go crazy and completely fade where guys went in drafts, but for me, not a huge factor. I think what's going on, opportunity, touches, those are the things that matter right now, not ADP. Question for my PPR league, Bourne and Atwell are still available. My bench has Charbonnet, Kelly, Burks, and Deontay Johnson. Would you guys drop any of them for any of the two? So both Bourne and Atwell had solid Week 1. Bourne, 6 catches on 11 targets, 64 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns, 24.4 fantasy points. Atwell, 6 catches on 8 targets for 119 receiving yards, 17.9. Looking at this team, Charbonnet, Kelly, Burks, and Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson, I think, has a chance to go on the IR. So if that's the case, that probably answers your question there. Burks, not a really good week. 3 targets. Tannehill didn't look good. I'm just wondering if instead of dropping guys, if you really want to pick up somebody, you try to do a 2-for-1 trade. I say this all the time. Combine 2 guys for 1 so that it clears up a roster spot and you slightly upgrade. Of the 2, I'd go with Kendrick Bourne over Tutu Atwell. I think we know that Cooper Kupp, or we're hoping that Cooper Kupp returns. I think Puka Nacua would win a job or win targets over Tutu Atwell. Kendrick Bourne, I think, could be sticky this year. I guess we'll see once everybody's healthy in New England. I prioritize Bourne over Atwell. But again, can you do a 2-for-1 trade here? Can you put Deontay Johnson on the IR? Antonio Gibson and Jalen Warren in my home league. I was planning on adding Roshan this morning and dropping Sky, but now I'm thinking Warren or Gibson. What you think? So Jalen Warren did match Najee Harris's 8 total touches, but he still only played 40% of the snaps, which is more than Antonio Gibson. His snap percentage was terrible. He only had 4 touches. But when it comes to these 2 guys, we've seen out of Antonio Gibson 2 top 20 seasons in fantasy points per game, 2 double-digit touchdown seasons, 2 seasons of 40-plus catches. So while I don't think things are going to completely flip for Antonio Gibson, I think we've just seen so much more out of him for fantasy, and I'm hoping that Eric Bieniemy gets him more involved in the offense. Should I start Tyler Algier or Javonte Williams this week? Good question. So Tyler Algier gets the Packers, Javonte gets the Commanders, gets Washington. So 17 touches for Javonte Williams last week. The 6 targets stand out for me, especially because he's on a team that has a pass-catching running back in Samaje Perine. I just think that when it comes to these two, Javonte doesn't have Bijan Robinson. And I know Algier touched the ball a lot. I know he scored 2 touchdowns. Those are good things, and I think he might continue to do that this season, or at least have opportunities that we thought were not going to be there for him because of Bijan Robinson. But I do think that Bijan Robinson will gradually just continue to earn more and more work. He is the most talented running back on his team, maybe the most talented piece of that offense. So when it comes to those 2 guys, I just look at, hey, who has what in their system? I'm going to go with Javonte this week against the Washington Commanders. With Gainwell out, does DeAndre Swift get the carries, or do they dress Rashad Penny and give him the workload? So good question with, Gainwell set to miss this week. He was the lead back last week. I have a ton of faith in DeAndre Swift as a talent, as a dual threat running back. I don't think that he is going to run the ball 20 times tonight. It's tonight's game. You still have Boston Scott in the mix too. I think they activate Rashad Penny. I think there is going to be a committee approach, but I do believe that DeAndre Swift leads the team in total touches this week, this Thursday night game. I think DeAndre Swift has a good game, and I've said it before. If you have DeAndre Swift, no Kenny Gainwell, this is where you are either playing him or trading him because people know he's going to touch the ball. So the 2 touches last week was terrible, right? But I think DeAndre Swift is in line to have a good week. Which starting running back do you see losing their job first? Cam Akers, Rachaad White, or Khalil Herbert? Is there a replacement worth an ad? So both Rachaad White and Cam Akers had terrible efficiency on good volume, so not the best sign there. Herbert played 36% of the snaps and had 12 touches. Deonta Foreman played 28% of the snaps and had 7 touches. Roshan Johnson led the team with 39% of the snaps and had 1 less touch then Herbert. I know it was garbage time for Roschon Johnson, but I think things stand out here. I think the targets and the work in the game really stand out. All three running backs for Chicago played. They all touched the ball. I believe that there's a good chance that Roschon Johnson, who still might be available in some leagues, I guess you'll have to see, could take over the backfield in Chicago. I do believe that. And I think last game was an indication that they're going to give guys opportunities. And Roschon Johnson, I know it was garbage time, had a lot of opportunity. Had another question, but the screenshot isn't fitting. Somebody asked, should I drop Dalton Kincaid for Luke Musgrave? So 2 rookie tight ends here. So Musgrave played 75% of the snaps. He caught 3 of his 4 targets for 50 yards. He probably could have scored in that game. But remember that there was no Christian Watson. I know that's a wide receiver. That we're talking about a tight end here. Jaden Reed, the other second-round rookie, also had 5 targets on the day. Romeo Doubs had a really good game. So while I think Luke Musgrave is going to continue to be very involved, I don't think he's going to be as involved as Dalton Kincaid, who played 80% of the snaps. Now, Dawson Knox played 84% of the snaps. Knox matched his targets with 4, so you might say, hey, that's concerning. But I do believe that Dalton Kincaid, first-round draft capital, is going to be highly involved in an offense that is led by Josh Allen. It's a great Buffalo Bills offense. I know there's some iffy signs there, but I think the number 2 target is still wide open beyond Stephon Diggs. I'm sticking with Dalton Kincaid over Luke Musgrave. We ask for fantasy football questions every single week on the Fantrax socials, so make sure you ask yours next week to be featured, and make sure you are following us for consistent fantasy football content.